to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm just going to explain a little bit what we're here to discuss and a little bit of the plan of action. First of all, anyone sitting far away, feel free to come around the table. Also, feel free to sit far away. This is I'm just going to introduce quickly who's at the head of the table here, and then we'll talk about the tentative program. So on my right is Councilman Bresci, myself, Council President Morty Bernstein. We have Robin LeBou, who is our affordable housing attorney, and we have Malika Apti, who is our affordable housing planner, and have both been extensively involved in this process pretty much from the beginning, each in different roles. So we'll get there as questions come out. I want to give a special thank you to our IT team because there was some confusion because our building is currently being modernized a little bit. And there were definitely some scares today if we'd be able to live stream this or not. And I was told I have ups and downs throughout the day. It is being live streamed. If anyone who is watching on live has any questions as the next hour and a half unfolds, feel free to email my township email. I'll be checking it periodically. That's what my ADHD requires me to do anyways. Email me at mbernstein, BURNSTEIN @jacksontwpnj.net, and hopefully we'll be able to read your questions in. This is not an official township meeting, but being that we are recorded, it obviously has some, I guess, I'll let the attorney answer that, but some form of capacity. But this is really just an opportunity. We're going to stick to the subject of affordable housing. If anyone has any other questions, let's leave it for another night. And we're going to talk about the current, as everyone knows, there are 3 ordinances that the council introduced 2 meetings ago. We're going to obviously talk about the affordable housing process, and then we're going to talk about these ordinances in particular. Hopefully, we'll be able to address as many questions as possible. If anyone has a question that the professionals or myself and my colleague are unable to answer, we obviously will write it down and go back to you in the next couple of days. Due to the fact that there is a sunshine law, which says that council members, only 2 council members at a time can meet. That's why just 2 of us are here now. I think Councilman Pollock will be coming at 8 o'clock, and either myself or Mr. Bresci, depending on who's more tired, will leave the room at that point. Councilman Borelli apologized he was unable to make it, and Councilman Palmieri also apologized that he was unable to make it, but they both promised me they'd be watching live or after. Now, I'm just going to tell you what I guess the tentative game plan is. The meeting was scheduled from 7 to 8:30. Obviously, we have professionals and people who want to go back. I would love to advertise it for longer, but then people walk in at 8:15 and start asking their questions then, and professionals do want to leave. Obviously, it's not a hard deadline. If we have questions, we're not looking to leave anyone stranded. I hope I'm speaking for everyone here. And like I said, if anyone has any questions, feel free after the meeting. Myself, Councilman Bresci, or Councilman Pollock will give everyone our information, and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. So obviously, there's been a lot of questions asked, many of them from different platforms. I've gotten a couple emails, and there's also been obviously a lot of questions in social media. We tried to the best of our ability to write as many of them down that we saw. I'm sure we missed a few of them, and I did send a bunch of them over to our attorney and to our planner so they could have it and hopefully address it. Obviously, if questions need to be repeated, feel free, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the process, let the attorney speak about the affordable housing Mount Laurel law that I'm going to use the word unfortunately we have, and talk about that process. I put myself in trouble. I did, I'm sorry, Judge. And then after that, we're going to address the process of how the township got the numbers that we got. And then I'm going to ask the attorneys to talk about how the sites that were picked, that process, and then head into the ordinances and the qualifications and the standards that are being introduced. And I just want to put one more thing out there quickly before we get into the meat and potatoes, is that we are, as a township, under a couple of litigations. So there may be times where the attorneys have to hesitate and may have to use that. It's not an excuse. There are 4 challenges currently to our affordable rights. There are technically 4 challenges. We will say what we're able to say, and we hope to be able to answer as many questions as possible. It is a grueling process, and a special thank you to Robin and to Malika, who I know throughout the day who are constantly fielding all the various issues that come up throughout the process. And this process doesn't end tonight, doesn't end at the next council meeting. It's an ongoing process. So, Robin, if I could turn over the floor to you, and then I'm just gonna, so we're gonna do the presentation, and then we're going to, I think there should be a second mic. We're gonna pass around the mic. This is not a council meeting, so first of all, let's be a little chilled out. We're all on the same team. We all have the same goal, I think. I hope we all have the same goal. Feel free, we're gonna pass around the mic, ask your question. Let's try to be civil and polite, and ask your question. We'll let the professionals or anyone up here who's able to answer that question answer it, and then we will continue going on. And if anyone has any questions, just wait until we get to the question and answer session. So, and suggestion time also, I'm sure there'll be suggestions that we make also that the professionals hopefully can answer. We're not perfect, but I think we're trying. And Carlos, it's not really a question session, but I'd like to ask one question quickly.
Yeah, so people want to join online. What's the quickest way to get to the link?
So I think it's the township YouTube channel. It's the same YouTube channel. All council meetings, planning boards, and zoning board meetings are streamed. Yeah. So without further ado, Robin, if we could just start with the process of the fourth round, third round, and explain that a little bit so people have an understanding of that.
I'm going to start back in 1975. Well, that's when a brief history. Affordable housing arose out of court decisions in New Jersey from Mount Laurel because the court found that the NAACP sued Mount Laurel because the people who were working in Mount Laurel couldn't afford to live there. And the result of the decision was the court found that there's a constitutional right to housing in the state of New Jersey. And this has evolved over the years, but basically every town has a constitutional obligation to provide for the development of affordable housing. And an administrative agency was formed in New Jersey. It was COA, Council on Affordable Housing, which administered affordable housing, determined what all of the town's numbers were for the first and second rounds, and was supposed to do it for the third round, but third round was supposed to start in 1999. And COA just couldn't come up with rules. They were changing the formula, and the towns were challenging what the rules were, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. So it wasn't until 2015 that there was another Supreme Court decision that said the COA is not doing their job, so we're going to turn this over to the courts. So then from 2015 till, some of the cases just wrapped up, all of the towns had to either just do nothing or file something with the court for determination that their housing element, their share plan provided an adequate opportunity for affordable housing in their town. And that process was really a negotiation. We filed a lawsuit, we negotiated with Fair Share and the builders for what their number would be. Now the third round spanned from 1999 to 2025. And Jackson Township settled with Fair Share Housing Center before there was a determination of what the obligation for the gap period. The gap period was the period between 1999 and 2015 when nothing would happen. So our settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center was really for the period of 2015 to 2025, and that agreement was for the building of 1,250 units. And the gap period was left for another day, but the township gap obligation was determined to be an additional 600 units on top of the 1,250. So because the third round was so chaotic, the legislature decided to adopt new rules whereby the DCA would calculate what your number would be. They would use the methodology that was figured out in the third round. They calculate your number, and you either accept your number or come up with your own number, and then by January 31st of this year. And that was subject to challenge. A lot of the numbers were challenged, and then the town had until June 30th to adopt the housing element and fair share plan to adequately address your number. And then the challengers, which we have 4 of, had until August 31st to file a challenge to the plan. They're saying your plan is not valid because your plan does not adequately plan for the creation of the number of units that you return. And that's where we are now. The challenges are supposed to be resolved by December 31st. So what we're trying to do in 2.5 months is what took place over 2.5 years in the third round. So it was all just really compact and jammed in. It's not easy for everybody to get it.
So, Robin, if you could just address how we got to just this number floating around 1,000, which I think is actually lower than that. It was 9. If you could explain that number.
Calculated Jackson Township's number for the fourth round, which is from July 1st of 2025 to June 30th of 2035, to be 954 units. However, we still had that gap number hanging around, that additional 600 units that we didn't plan for from the third round. So Fair Share Housing Center and Jackson Township got together and negotiated an agreement, whereas our total number, including the gap year and the fourth round, would be capped at 1,000 units. So there's
950, right?
954.
So 954 plus 600, and the agreement was for 1,000.
So we saved 506 units. We were able to dispense of that obligation.
Amazing. Now, if you could just elaborate for a second, the second and third round, what were our numbers?
I believe our prior round numbers, that is the period between 1987 to 1999, was 1,247, which is 1,247. Our third round number, which is from 1999 to 2025, was 1,250, 1250.
So our numbers went down a little bit.
Yes, and for the fourth round, as Ms. Nabu just testified, was about 1,000 units. Is our fourth round number, which spans from 2025 to 2035.
So, Ms. Lebu, that affordable housing settlement, which was 1,000, which we negotiated with Fair Share Housing, can you just elaborate on the process? There was obviously negotiations, and when that was. If I remember correctly, it was October of 2024. And that process, just the legislative process that codified that into a law or a settlement agreement, whatever that was.
That process was ongoing throughout 2024. I think we finally came to an agreement with Fair Share in October or November. It's actually signed December 12th of 2024, and then was approved by unanimous vote of the Township Council on November 12th of 2024. So.
I think it's just important to elaborate for a second, because people are constantly saying that council agreed to 1,000 homes. There are two current council members, myself and Mr. Borelli, who did vote on that. Mr. Bressi was not in council, Mr. Pollack was not in council, and Mr. Palmieri were not in council at that point, but that was a unanimous vote by the 5 council members at that point, which were Mr. Borelli, myself, Mr. Chisholm, Mr. Sargent, and Council President Kuhn at that point. So those are the 5 members who voted on the agreement that I think the mayor at that point negotiated with our attorneys with Fair Share Housing. So that's how we got to the 1,000 number at that point. So then I guess we should move to the next step. I don't think Malik was even involved at that point with the negotiations, but then the town council and the mayor's office at that point authorized the planning board to start a master plan, which was part of the agreement that we do a affordable housing plan together with a master plan. Now, but when did that start? And if you could elaborate a little bit on how the affordable housing, I think the master plan was released separately. I think people's questions, affordable housing, how that process unfolded.
So, as Council President just mentioned,
You can call me Morty.
Township of Jackson decided to do a comprehensive master plan. Affordable housing plan, yes, we were required to do as part of our settlement agreement, but essentially what it is housing element and fair share plan, which is one of the elements of our comprehensive master plan. The planning board formed a master plan subcommittee, which would veer this entire process to happen, which needed, all our land use element, all the other 10 elements that were involved, including the housing element and fair share plan.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm not rude. I mean, maybe I am, but I'm not trying to be rude now. Just to point out the master, so that people know all the names. The master plan subcommittee was appointed by the planning board, and I think there were 4 members of the planning board on it.
Yes.
who was Dr. Campbell, the chairwoman.
Yes.
Ms. Lisa DiMarzo, was on there, Mr. Heller was on there, and I was a council liaison, just so people know who from the planning board was part of that process.
Yes, that's
Continue.
exactly right. So, in terms of while we were doing all the land use element and the other elements that were presented before the planning board in July of this year, we had also this task of providing a housing element fair share plan that is a feasible plan showing how Township of Jackson will meet its housing unit requirement. As part of that process, the Master Plan Subcommittee invited any landowners as well as developers in Township of Jackson who are interested in developing any of the properties in Township of Jackson to come to the Master Plan Subcommittee, show their concept, and basically review the concept. The Master Plan Subcommittee review the concept, provide some parameters or guidelines for them to develop their concept plans on, and show us what they can develop on this property. Each of the developer was invited, provided a certain set of parameters, almost like a checklist. It wasn't an ordinance at that point, but we wanted to give them some guidelines as to what is it that we were looking for in development. First and foremost requirement was that we have to do obviously some kind of set aside, to help us meet our 1,000 unit number. The second item that we required is we were looking to provide more growth along our high commercial corridor, so to say. So one of the requirements was that your site should be fronting on County Road. We provided
I think the condition was that you need to have 300 feet, if I remember correctly, or 200 feet. I think it was 300 feet of frontage on a county road to be part of this, to avoid small parcels all over town.
Exactly. So again, that was one of the requirements. We wanted to make sure the minimum lot area is something up to more than 10 acres was what was given to them, that you have to come to us, not with small sites, but at least something that is 10 acres plus. And we also set parameters into what kind of amenities would be provided, what type of housing types that would be permitted, whether it's single family, whether it's multi-family, whether it's townhouses. Again, according to Fair Housing Act, you have to have affordable housing development that's integrated with any kind of market rate units also. So we did provide all those parameters to these developers that came in. We required parking requirement, not only for the units that will be built, but any kind of community or amenity center that will be built. We provided parking standards for that. We made sure there is some kind of buffering provided around the property boundary when it's adjacent to single-family residential development. We asked them and their engineers who would be developing this concept plan to provide their capabilities in sewer and water provision of that, as well as again, these were concept plans, but we asked them to keep in mind the design as well as the architectural design of the building that will eventually happen before the planning board. So these all parameters were shared with them. Each of the developers, went back to their drawing table, to their professionals, asked them to kind of design the concept plan based on that. And these were provided, presented before the Master Plan Subcommittee. And, then those sites were included in the Master Plan, as you can see, the affordable housing element.
Okay, so I just want to review quickly and move on to the next one, and then we'll open the floor. So we got to the 1,000 units that was based on a settlement with the Fair Share Housing. The planning board was tasked with creating a subcommittee, which the planning board did. The subcommittee obviously had to find pieces of land in town that would be suitable for development for the 1,000 affordable units. The subcommittee put out notice, I think it was mentioned by multiple planning board meetings and online. Developers want to come with their property. There were meetings with developers here in Town Hall where developers were able to bring their professionals with the attorneys here and show their plans. There was a checklist created with certain provisions. For example, you needed 10 acres or more. You needed to be on a county road, and etc. Parking requirements open space recreation requirements, and those developers needed to show plans. After, and I assume any developer who the developers came, they complied. What was the process after Malachi?
After that, after they showed compliant concept plans, the master plan subcommittee and professionals there involved look at all these sites and vetted them, made sure the development is cohesive, can be feasible, because all these standards such as provability, developability, sustainability have to be proven according to the Fair Housing Act, and then included that in the Fair Housing Act. Eventually, we came up with 17 sites that will help Township of Jackson meet its 1,000 unit, 1,000 credit requirement for the fourth round. And that's what is in the plan.
Okay, so that plan obviously went through a lot of professional review. That plan, was it adopted?
I believe so.
Yes, so that plan was adopted. That was a rhetorical question. That plan was adopted in August, right? There was a planning board public meeting, which I think Jim was our sole resident there probably. But that plan was adopted in August. July of 2025. And I guess moving forward, then we'll go backwards. The next step after that is now the council has to create ordinances to codify those zones, correct?
I also want to make a point, Mr. Bernstein, to bring, again, as part of the settlement, we had, in the settlement, there is almost like a timetable provided. And we had to have our housing element and fair share plan adopted by a certain time. In this process, again, while discussing with the courts as well as affordable housing program, it was shown that one of Township of Jackson was doing its due diligence, and therefore we had to adopt our plan. I believe the deadline was July 31st, 2025. So the Township Master Plan Subcommittee did make sure we, abide by our settlement agreement and make sure the planning board does have an adopted plan that can be, still keep us meeting the settlement agreement.
And just to elaborate for a second, the planning board adopted it. I know, Robin, there were conversations. The council did not adopt the plan because that's a planning document, right?
That's correct. It's adopted by the planning board.
Okay, so now the council's job is, now that those 17 sites are picked, is to make sure those standards are set aside, which is the ongoing process. The council introduced, I think in the summer, 2 ordinances for the single family lots, and then which did not include commercial requirements. It just included recreation, residential, and community centers for the developments. And now the council is in the process of reviewing and discussing and debating I'll call it the townhome development, or the higher density mixed use development, which include the requirements that for every X amount of units, you need X amount of space of commercial. The commercial needs to be on the county road, so when residents pass the county road, they see the facade of commercial. And part of that, and I'll let Malvin talk about that, why did the planning board feel it was appropriate to include as a requirement for developers to build a commercial? What was the benefit of that?
So, again, the amount of, units that would be provided in this mixed-use development, in order to make the project feasible, there is some amount of commercial that needs to also go in, because we want to make sure there is enough non-residential also occurring in Township of Jackson and not just units after units. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted these sites that are along the county road to have commercial component to it, and that's why it has been put in the ordinance also. And I believe the ordinance also makes sure that the developers just don't build the units, the commercial component is also taken care of simultaneously, and the Township of Jackson is just not ending up with only residential that's taken.
Right, and I think one of the comments that I think we've seen throughout from a lot of feedback from residents is that we've had previous plans and former and older rounds, which we all saw the rooftops, we saw the houses coming, but no one ever saw the commercial, which was promised. So I think, if I remember correctly, the ordinances stipulated that at a certain percentage you are obligated to build your rooftops. Sorry, you're obligated to build your commercial where you can't get your CO and you can't actually go ahead and use those developments. And I think one of the questions that I saw online is that there seems to be, and Ms. Lobo, I think you could address this better, I think you were involved at that point, from previous rounds, certain settlement allowances, for example, maybe not to get some of the permits for trees and some of the other concerns that residents have. Would any of that apply currently with the ordinances that are pending?
No, those were settlement-specific requirements, and they're not generally applicable to anyone else, and we don't have any settlements with anyone currently.
So, now, I think we should discuss some of the questions. That's the general process that I think has existed until now. I apologize if we were long-winded and boring. I just wanted to get at least everyone to hear the process. Ms. Lebu, if we could just address for a second, obviously there are challenges to our plan by developers who wanted their parcels to be included. And obviously part of that challenge process is that they claim some of the other developments are not suitable or as suitable, or the density that they got wasn't as high as they would like it to be. And we have a time frame that we are working with the courts. I think we have a court hearing tomorrow, and then we have further hearings in the next couple of weeks to try to navigate those challenges. If the Township of Jackson were to decide at this point that, you know, it's easier politically and everything else just to let the plan just float and just not move anything forward, what is builder's remedy? Everyone uses this term, and I think it's a very scary term, but no one really understands what it is. I've been told that it's just baloney. So if you could address that for a second, like what that looks like.
As an affordable housing attorney, the builder's remedy and the loss of community is my worst nightmare, because that means that all of this planning and that everything that we've done just goes away. That if we lose immunity, if they're successful in challenging the plan, or if we don't fight it, then the builders get to build whatever they want, because the town still has the obligation to plan for the units. And the builders are saying, here we are, we have money, we have land, we'll build them, and they can get whatever density they think is appropriate and override our zoning. That's the builder's remedy, and that's the danger in losing immunity and not having a compliant plan.
I'd like to add one thing to that. You got it, the one thing she said. If they come in with a builder's remedy, no matter what zoning you have, when they go for it, your zoning means nothing no more. The court tells them they can do it. And a couple of years back, you had the attorneys check on how these builder remedies are going in cases. Cases were in the small little towns, big towns, everything went to the builders. So they get more than what they can get from us, and they get the builders where they want, no matter what our zoning is in the town. That goes away with a builder's remedy, and people have to recognize that.
And I'll just elaborate on that for a second. There's certain conditions that we put on the developers, which I don't think all developers are probably so excited with, because developers would rather sometimes not build commercial. They'd rather just build housing. They make more money off of that. We put certain percentages for open space and recreation. We put certain community centers that the developer needs to pay. We put some extra parking requirements that the developers have to pay instead of the DPW doing signage and other things like that. That if we would lose the immunity, Ms. LeBuyson, we would not have that leverage possibly on the developers, like we saw with the case where I saw the pictures online where developers are cutting the trees without getting all the necessary, or what we would have thought was necessary permits, because that was part of the stipulation through the settlement and through the courts. I think one of the questions people have asked is, why do we have to have 1,000 units plus market rate units? Why don't we just build 1,000 units? A, why can't the municipality build 1,000 units? That's one question I've seen asked by many people. B, I think people have also asked, we've seen other towns where they were creative, where they've taken existing warehouses or existing hotels. Why aren't we doing that in Jackson? That's question number 2 that I saw. And then I think a different question I have seen is, okay, we have to do 1,000, we get it, it was passed already, but could we require a higher percentage of affordable? Instead of saying 20% or 10% or 50%, why can we require 40% affordable? And I guess if our professionals could address that underlining how the 20% ratio works. I know, Ms. LeBou, you and I had a conversation, about sometimes when you lower the density of allowable development, the courts actually, the law has certain stipulations that you can't require certain levels of affordable. So if you could address that, please.
It's in the administrative code, the substantive rules of creating affordable housing. Basically, the builders have to be able to make money. And what COA and subsequent courts have found is that the ratio for them to be able to actually make it, to incentivize them to build the housing, they have to also be able to make a profit. So they get the 80% market rate that they can sell at whatever they can get it for, and then the 20% have to remain deed restricted for 30, 40 years.
So I guess the question, and I don't think we addressed the full question, is when it was advertised for builders and developers to come to the township and offer the parcels, before we talk about if the township should have built it, were there developers who came and offered their land to build 100% to meet our quota of 1,000 units?
No, no one came with an offer to build 100% affordable, and no one came with a proposal for an existing defunct previous commercial use. There were no empty warehouses, no hotels, nothing.
So I know residents have been asking, there are empty warehouses in town, but you need those warehouse developers to want to come and include their warehouses, I would assume.
Correct.
Now, can we just talk about, I know Ms. Malvey, you were involved in some other towns also. There have been other towns that have been creative with incentives to some of these developers to try to lower the density. Could you talk about some of those incentives that might have worked in other towns and possibly why some of those haven't entered into our current plan?
So I'm going to speak very generally, as I don't want to, I'm not authorized to speak of one specific town in another town. But to put it as simple, like every type of mechanism, be it 100% or converting a commercial into a affordable housing development, does come with its own set of parameters and settings that are required. Quote unquote, as a municipality, if a developer had come to a municipality that they're interested in something like this, it does come with, the township having equal amount of skin in the game. So we have to offer some kind of either monetary incentive to accommodate these 100% housing developers or somebody converting a commercial unit in rehab. Specifically in terms of 100% affordable housing, either municipality has to donate the land, which is township owned, that can be provided to them, or provide them at least a certain percentage of cost of construction of that entire 100% affordable housing through their affordable housing trust fund monies. So there are certain, negotiating factors that have to happen, and the monies and these other set of requirements that have to be provided to these developers to make that project feasible and something that will happen definitely for the code or the affordable housing program to accept it. One of the questions Mr. Bernstein said is why could we build all the 1,000 units as 100% affordable housing? A couple of things as we work day in and day out with these plans is there is the state low-income housing tax credit that affords these developers of 100% affordable housing units to be able to lend them money and for them to be successfully build these units. That is now every municipality in state of New Jersey is going to apply for that, or every developer is going to apply for that. So it has become very competitive for it to take place. Having said that, the reason I bring that up is the affordable housing programs as well as courts are also looking at it. You can't just say we're going to do all the 1,000 units through 100% affordable housing, because then they ask you to go a step further. Then they ask you to provide the pro forma. Where is the money coming from? Where is going to happen? And in case there is not money, there has to be a shortfall of funding to be provided, which is when township or municipality has to provide a resolution with intent to bond. So all that has to be provided for a successful, quote-unquote, 100% affordable housing development to happen in front of court and affordable housing program
and I'll just add one thing, I know that came up in some of our conversations, is that in order for the town to give land for affordable, it would be the town going ahead and taking a piece of land that was preserved, that the residents asked to be preserved, that we bought with open space money, whatever other funds we used, and turning residents in that neighborhood and saying, sorry, we decided we want to put affordable housing here. And I can guarantee you the residents in whatever neighborhood that would most likely be very unhappy to see that the town council decided to take what they thought was preserved for eternity and go ahead and give it to a developer to turn into 100% affordable, which I've yet to meet anyone who really wants that within their neighborhood. So I think that was something that was just brought up. I'm just making sure before we turn over the floor, I'm sure we'll have other questions as the night progresses. Councilman, anything that you want to add before? So Ms. Lobo, just to review at this point, for the town to go ahead and to stop the process now, your professional opinion is that we would be running into a deadline with the state and the courts. Is that correct?
The deadline for compliance certification is December 31st. So if we were to stop and not do anything, then as of that date, we would lose our immunity.
Okay, first of this year.
Yes.
The time for this cycle has been much shorter than it's ever been because the courts combined the last cycle into, how long has the process been since we got our number? 18 months?
It's been, no, we got our number about a year ago. And yeah, December of 2024, and we've had to plan and come up with all these plans and file actions and be in court. And now all of the, I think about 440 towns in the state of New Jersey filed plans, and 440 towns are in court right now, and all trying to get it done by that date. So it's been incredibly stressful process.
I can attest to one thing. When round one came in, many towns weren't ready for it, us included. We had to move it at the last second. At that time, we hired Mr. Cirilli, who was the best person at that time. And the guys under protection of the court. In that short time that we had, we got the protection. People were lining up to do building remedies already. They were all ready to file for building remedies when that close in time. And anybody out here who says building remedies is a joke, it's not a real thing, better check the books. It's real, and it's very damaging to the towns. The town has no control once the building remedies are coming in.
Now, last thing I forgot, I know this was something that was very much, I had a couple residents call me about this. So let's assume these ordinances go through, and let's assume these developments eventually get built. Then it's affordable housing. People have asked, where are these units advertised? Could Jackson residents get first dibs? Could someone on the dais just decide who they want to give these units to? So Ms. LaBou, if you could just address the process, what the developers need to do to make sure these affordable houses happen, and then B, if you could also address really the affordable housing process.
There's an administrative agent that's appointed by the township, and they qualify individuals and households for housing. They, and all of the developers have to file an affirmative marketing plan. We can't give preference to Jackson Township residents, but we can do a regional preference for people within our housing region. We're in housing region 4, which is Ocean, Monmouth, and Mercer.
And I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Our attorneys brought to our attention about 8 weeks ago that we were not part of a regional plan, which meant that the affordable housing went into the whole state, which meant someone in Jackson had the same chance as someone in Monmouth County, as someone in Ocean County, as someone in Trenton, Newark, you name it, anywhere through the state. So the council passed, I think it was 3 or 4 meetings ago, a resolution adopting the regional plan, which means that we're part of the Region 4, you said, which is Ocean, Monmouth, and Mercer, which lowers the pool of people who could apply at first dibs to our affordable housing. So I'm sure we missed something, we're gonna turn it over now. This is not an official council meeting. You do not need to identify yourself, but it'd be nice if you did, because we're all friends here. I guess we'll start with one question, we'll have them answer, and then we'll continue around the room. I see Carlos raise his hand first, and we'll let Carlos speak first.
Thank you. Yeah, Carlos Martins, Jackson. Please.
Carlos, you're not in your capacity as a zoning board member, right?
That's correct.
You don't have to raise your hand to swear, just making sure.
You legal guys can kill them. Okay. So you mentioned about we want growth. Yeah, we want commercial because we want growth. Can you elaborate? Why do we want the commercial? I apologize, but basically your answer was we want commercial because we want commercial. Why do we want commercial?
Could I stop for a second? I don't know if anyone said we want growth. We have growth that we have to manage and develop in the smartest way possible. I don't think anyone in Jackson who did a referendum wants growth. That being said, the reason why commercial was put in there was A, ratables, B, when everyone's going to the same direction for the 1 or 2 commercial sites you have in town, that leads to traffic. So if you spread out commercial throughout the town, that's what the planners and all the professionals recommended. You ensure that you A, get those commercials in place, commercial ratables, but B, you also ensure a more smooth traffic pattern. If you're going to have one dry cleaners that everyone has to go to only on County Line Road, that means all 17 sites, everyone's going to County Line Road. So if you are able to spread it out and people are able to shop in front of their houses in a strip mall in front of their houses, that limits, hopefully, and that creates a better traffic pattern. Malva, anything you want to add to that?
I do want to add to that. So the type of commercial that's in this ordinances, through these ordinances that's going to be permitted is more like neighborhood commercial. So it is going to benefit the neighborhood. One thing, during the land use planning element preparation process, one thing that was always very evident is Township of Jackson is a large municipality. It doesn't have one central downtown. In order to create that community needs, your commercial, your dry cleaners, as Mr. Bernstein said, or any kind of restaurant or retail services, which will benefit these developments that are coming in and the neighborhoods around it, some kind of commercial component to that would be beneficial, again, to alleviate the traffic for the residents, for the existing residents, to have some commercial there. And that's why this was one of the areas where we could add commercial and create that component for the neighborhoods that exist in Jackson.
You guys have talked a lot for it to work.
Okay. I think it's important to go into those details. Because I know I was, why do we want commercial? We say we want it, but why? I appreciate you guys doing that.
And Carlos, just to answer that, I think the developers actually rather than build a commercial. The commercial, there was pushback from some of the developers, but with some of the concept plans and back and forth that they had, that we were really requiring more than they would like to make. But our attitude was, as a township, is to push back a little bit. Jim?
Just like you, I was on the board, just as a resident. When you talk about affordable housing, there's 3 things that need to be happening when you talk about affordable housing. I think we've talked quite a bit about one of them being commercial retail stuff, so that the residents that are living in these communities, they can either work, shop, or whatever. What about the other 2? Schools and transportation. What has the town put into their plans to remedy those 2 scenarios with 17 locations?
17.
17 locations, because you're going to put, I'm going to always go back to the 5 yards one, because that's the furthest one away, and it's, as far as I know, it's probably the biggest one. Okay, so that's why else. So out where the Pine Barrens Golf Course is right now, all of a sudden put all kinds of houses. Schools are not close. There's no transportation there. There's no state roads. Obviously, Jackson doesn't have state roads. So how is Jackson going to make sure that the residents that are in these affordable units get that capability?
Malva, before you answer, I just want to add one more thing to Carlos for a second, because it's on my mind. You talk about commercial, and I want to reiterate, the commercial that was approved, where it's part of the concept, is NC, not warehouses. I think it's a very important thing for people to understand. I think Jackson Township residents, again, if we did a poll, do not want to see more warehouses in town. No more tractor trailers moving through residential neighborhoods. And that was something that was very much stressed within the plan. Now, with regard to Jim's question, Melvin and Robin, I know we talked about putting it on county roads, which is the highest order, which obviously has the best chance, but how do we address the fact that as a township, we do not have city buses going through our town? And I don't think we want city buses going through our town. We're not Trenton, Newark, or Lakewood. How do we answer that to our, like, affordable housing makes sense in Newark, Trenton, and Lakewood. It doesn't make sense in a town that has no buses, train system, and trolleys. Right, so we're a rural town. Have we made an argument to the state, and what do we answer Jim's questions?
So, to put it as simple, I mean, this has been the question that has been raised umpteen number of times as to why, a town in Sussex County has to provide affordable housing while, there's no transportation over there or something like that. But to the bottom line of this is the Fair Housing Act. It is the constitutional obligation of every municipality to provide a certain amount of affordable housing within their community. The idea behind it is to make sure equal opportunities are provided, and there is affordable housing in every municipality within the state of New Jersey. In terms of providing mass transportation, that has been the battle throughout the state of New Jersey, how that can be increased. As you all know, there's another state agency that works on that is going on about it, and I don't think there's a straight line that has been formed between these two agencies. However, every municipality, and in case of Jackson, that's the idea behind it, trying to make sure most of these developments are along the county road, so at least direct access to one of the commercial corridors is available in these developments. In terms of school, that is, the only thing I can say to that is, again, it's our constitutional obligation to meet those. I'm not sure the courts, even that.
They don't care.
Jim, if I can answer for a second, I don't think anyone on this side of the table will disagree that affordable housing belongs in cities, not in Jackson.
And the cities don't have an obligation, they're exempt.
And to be perfectly honest, the reason I asked that question is not, we have the responsibility. So when you say, well, the state's talking, well, forget it. We're very, I think we can all say we're very clear. The state isn't looking to help anyone.
Well, of course,
So the question now becomes, what is this town? Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna build it, people are gonna move here. And then all of a sudden, they're gonna start coming in these meetings complaining about the town isn't doing enough. And then it becomes.
So one thing I just want to mention is that when we did the master plan and affordable housing, part of that element was obviously examining the school system. I think we all know that the district was forced to sell 2 schools this year against their will by a state monitor. So again, one arm of the state is not talking to the next arm, under the next arm, all under the same guru in the state. So we're all aware of that dilemma. We obviously, I think we do need to communicate more with the district, because maybe that should be a part of their argument that maybe they should be making to the state when their state's forcing them to sell schools or cut their funding, is that are we leaving an option if we do need to expand, if that we have those options available, but I think you know the answer.
I'd like to add one thing too. Here, we're out in the rural area and the cities aren't getting it. And to show you how they've strengthened affordable housing over the years. Years ago, you tell me, I think it was 2007 or so, we were able to take our obligation and trade it off to Camden or someplace. I think that was in 2007. And the state put a stop to that. They said, no, you're going to build in your rural areas. They actually took that away from us. So if you follow affordable housing all along, for this many years, you get as sick of it as anybody else is following. But that's one of the rules they put in, and that we could not no longer do that. I think it was 2007.
Morgan?
Excuse me, I think we've got to manage our time.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who want to
Sure.
ask questions.
I just have one last question.
Sure. And I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Do you mind, or I'll just switch off? Okay. Thank you, Ken.
And this kind of goes to the ordinance that way they're written. The township has gone from the concept of gross acreage to net acreage. You, as the attorney, tell me what is included to reduce it from gross to net. Yeah. Again, I go back to Pine Barrens, 411 acres. If there's wetlands, obviously you can't build on. Anything else that would reduce that number down to the net number? And the reason I ask, and maybe I'll ask my question, you can tell.
His ordinance.
So the ordinance here just talks about not including wetlands or any applicable wetland transition bonds. So my question is, and it pertains to the open space requirements that are not. So by including open space, if it's not reducing net acreage, you're creating higher density living in these spots. So why would we not include open space in the reduction? So that would not create a higher density than what this 8 units, because if, say, Pine Barrens has 50 acres that's considered open space, and they have 111 acres of wetlands, you're down to 258, or you're down to 300 acres that you build on, that would allow them to build 2,400 units on those 300 acres. 50 of them is open space, so now it's 250 acres. They will only, if you exclude the open space, would allow them to build the 200 or 2,000.
So I just want to make sure I'm clarifying, make sure I understood the question, because I think it's a question which I don't have an answer for yet. The ordinance was written to be gross acreage over net acreage, not to include wetlands and buffers and everything in the buildable felt. I'll get your mic in a second. So I think what Jim is asking is that the language does not seem to include, it doesn't include open space. So is open space considered part of the gross acreage or not? I know definitely what the conversation was, what the intent was. And I think, Malika, that's going to be a question looking at your numbers, maybe with the lots, what each parcel is supposed to give to the affordable housing and seeing if that could be included or not. But I know that was definitely intended, and like Jim mentioned before the meeting, that if something ain't in there, it's not going to be included. So, I got your question, so we'll go back to you. I want to pass to this table, and then we're going to go on this side for a few minutes.
Hi, Kim, Jackson resident. I have a couple of questions. First one is, from 2015 to now, the things that have been built, like the apartment buildings, which have affordable housing, including Jackson 21, where they threw the affordable housing on its own, which I don't agree with. It should have been amongst the apartments.
Can't do that anymore.
I know, we should have been able to do it then. But are apartments included in this, or is it just we're doing single family and townhomes and things like that? That's my first question. Are apartment buildings included in this?
So, as part of, like what would be permitted, I believe, the ordinance permits, single-family townhouses and multifamily as permitted uses.
Okay, so then if we've already built the Paragon and Jackson 21, is that included in our 1,000 as of right now?
So those already built are helping us meet, as we mentioned before, the prior and the third round. So those are part of our, what we were supposed to build to meet our numbers there. Yeah.
Okay. So you're looking to build, if you're doing 20%, 5,000 types of homes within Jackson. Within how many years? Do we have a specific?
So if I could just add to that, with the last round, it does not make it. One of the things that the courts asked us was to provide a documentation that everything was built in the last round. There were many, as of 5:30 today, they're both on the phone with me trying to get copies from the zoning office of what was built, what wasn't, because when we first started this process 2 weeks ago, Malika called me, she's like, Morty, we're missing units that were supposed to be built that were never built, and we found that they were built. So,
But if we don't build them, then we have to go back. So if we have a shortfall, we have to make it up.
Right. So then my other question is like, the one on Freehold Road, DR Horn. Are there affordable housing in there?
Jackson 21?
No, this is DR Horn, the townhomes on Freehold Road. I don't know if that's considered part of Jackson 21.
I think that's all part of it.
No,
No, it's not.
are affordable housing, they're totally different. All those townhomes that were just built, that DR Horn was built, I guess it's part of Jackson 21, but in that townhome section, are there affordable housing that are selling with?
I don't think so. I think they were segregated in the Jackson 21.
So even the townhomes was
With
there?
the entire development that was part of it, the entire development had a number, but I don't think that they weren't included in every section. They weren't interspersed throughout, as they would be required to be now
Okay.
under the new rules.
What about the ones that are on Harmon Road?
I can speak to that one. That one has affordable within the development.
Okay.
It hasn't been built yet. I think, I understand correctly. Only built
After we build the first.
And some of them are built.
after the first percentage. They can't build the next percentage of units until those affordable units are built. But I was in the zoning office a couple weeks ago and they told me those permits have come in to build them. So I assume they're going to be built soon.
Because we're looking at like 5,000 units altogether, if you're doing the 20%.
Correct.
How is the township going to be able to handle it? Seriously, how are we going to handle 5,000 more homes right now with what's going on? We're closing schools and we're gonna bring 5,000 families into here.
So I think this piggyback off a little bit Jim asked before. The state does not seem to one hand of the state with the other hand of the state. The school system is suffering, and I don't think anyone on the dais in any capacity disagrees with that last comment.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I grew up in Brooklyn. I get that we need to do something. We can't segregate like they did with Jackson 21.
That's not allowed anymore, thankfully.
But on top of that, we were supposed to have all those commercial votes in Jackson 21, and we got nothing. Not one iota of commercial orders.
So,
No, we were supposed to have a movie theater. We don't have a Target. We don't have a Walmart. You're building things, you're bringing warehouses in, you're bringing this, but it's not for the community. We're not getting anything that we're supposed to get for our community.
I don't disagree with you, and that's why we said the two things to address two of the concerns, not all the concerns. Two of your concerns are that the commercial, which is allowed, is not warehouses, it's only neighborhood commercial, which is the pizzeria, the dry cleaners, the banks, etc., things of like commercial. And secondly, is that there is, in the ordinances, there's a very strict phasing plan. It's a lot of complicated legal words in there, but that requires you can't build X, and I don't have to remember all the numbers. After you build the first percentage, let's say the first 25%, you can't build the next percentage unless you go ahead and build the commercial, because we are concerned, like you just said, with the previous projects in town where they didn't have a phasing plan and they end up not building the commercial.
I mean, I love a Walmart here instead of going to Howell. Come on, people. I'd rather have that. I mean, I like the Robbinsville area, how they did it. It's very cool, and that's when I thought Jackson 21 was gonna be, and I live off the road from it. I thought that would be great, go down there, see the kids, go to the stores. If you're gonna do this, we need to make sure that you do the right thing at this point.
So that's why I do believe, and obviously the ordinances are available for the public to review, there's certain stipulations that are in here that I do think are a lot stricter than we've ever seen in Jackson. I drove to Monmouth in Howell a couple times. There's an affordable development right over the border by off of Farmingdale Road. And there's no parks in that entire development. There's no community center in that entire development. And there is nothing, there is no amenities for the residents there. So we have to do our best, and that's why we put those stipulations in, the council put those in with a phasing plan and with a very strict stipulation that the zoning officer cannot give the COs. Right, but they don't have, from what I understand, the recreation and the commercial and the community center. Okay, but I still think they should have had a little bit of open space, but again, I'm talking about another town here.
Holly Reynolds, with the Environmental Commission, but I'm speaking just as a Jackson resident. Other towns have challenged the requirements for the number of the affordable housing. Has Jackson applied for any reductions in that number? You said that there was that 954, but then you had the 600 gap, and then you settled with 1,000. But there are other towns that were able to reduce those numbers based on their land capacity factors. So
That's one thing that we don't have. And I represent 12 other towns, and some of them did. But that's based on a vacant, they're saying we don't have enough vacant land in order to build these units. And that's not a problem here. That's not something that Jackson Township was able to say.
it's not just the vacant land though, it's also
There's a whole
wetlands, pinelands, all these other things that go into that number. So we have one of the highest land capacity, no, actually the second highest land capacity percentage in the state, next to Deerfield.
I would just say that the council decided to settle with Fair Share Housing Center. So we reduced our fourth round number from 954 to 750, and our gap number from 600 to 250, for a total number of 1,000 units. And then to enter into an agreement with Fair Share for this number, and then to turn around and repudiate the number would not have looked good. And Fair Share Housing Center, as part of that agreement, is backing up Jackson Township and is friendly in the litigation that it's not that way with everybody else. So that's one consideration.
My other question would be with the hits of the sites across town, do you realize that some of these lots are entire wetlands?
Actually, that's a good point. How do you?
There's seaward waterways going through them, there's wetlands going through it, you have a high recharge area that can contaminate the aquifer underneath of us. Like, there's a lot of environmental constraints in our township that doesn't seem to be getting addressed when taking these sites.
So, Adam, I'll get to answer that, but it's a good question.
So one thing to bring up is, again, all of these concept plans were developed using engineers. As you know, the developers used engineers in preparing these plans. Having said that, the wetlands, the flood hazard areas are state regulations. Township of Jackson ordinance is not going to override the state regulations. Wherever there are wetlands, LOI, letter of interpretation, is going to be required. They're going to have to get that from DEP, which is going to provide them the type of wetlands that exist on the property, how much buffer they need for that, and then develop the site plan. So when this ordinance passes and say, a couple of months down the line, you have a developer from one of these sites coming before your planning board is going to ask that if there is wetland, do you have the NJDEP approval? Do you have the LOI certificate? Are you meeting the flood hazard area? So those will still, be there because those are state regulations. Our ordinance cannot override the state regulations.
Yeah. Adam, just 1 second. I know Holly, could you turn, I don't want to interrupt your time, so Adam, go for it.
I just have one point. That's a great point. Two things. Why aren't our wetlands and other environmental infrastructures being factored into that land use capacity, or why aren't our infrastructures being used as evidence to challenge the state? Right? How do you plan to mitigate outside agency approval in a timely manner? Not even the DEP.
Could I ask a question?
Just 1 second. If Hope Chapel is full of findings, right, we would have to go to the commission. How do you plan to mitigate outside agency approval in a timely manner?
So now, I guess
That's not guaranteed.
Right. So if, and I think you just said a great question, a great answer. If for some reason, let's say the developer would follow through and submit a plan, and there would be environmental restraints, and the plan wouldn't be able to be approved because of those outside agency approvals that weren't granted, would we be potentially, whatever, we have to go back to the drawing board?
Yes.
How can you even rezone it?
What?
How can you rezone jurisdiction that you don't have the authority over?
How could we rezone something now?
So
That Pinelands has jurisdiction over.
So Pinelands does have to review our ordinances as they come about. They also have to have a say in it. So every time an ordinance that belongs to the Pineland regions, copy of it is sent to the Pinelands, where Pinelands has to approve it. I believe Township of Jackson is providing the Pinelands and discussing with them on some of these proposed ordinances.
So,
Is that application currently submitted?
No application
No.
has been submitted. We're just doing the
so
ordinances.
the way, my understanding, and again, we can double back to you, Adam, is that like we had a couple years ago, we had those DOJ, settlement lawsuits, ordinances. The Township of Jackson passes ordinances. We then submitted them to the Pinelands Commission. The Pinelands Commission's reviewed them for about 2 years, a lot of back and forth. And they came back and there obviously was a form of agreement and then it had to be amended. So my understanding is if these ordinances go through next week, the council, those ordinances would then be sent to the Pinelands Commission and they would have jurisdiction, and assuming the Pinelands does what they usually do, they may shoot them back to us. If that's what they choose to do, that's their authority, and I think the Pinelands is known for doing their job.
Don't you believe that's like skipping a step? What if you have to undo the ordinance? Why wouldn't you just wait until you get the actual agreement?
Because we don't have time. We don't have time.
But you yourselves just said these LOIs can take 2 years.
We have to plan, we have to adopt a plan that provides a realistic opportunity for the development of affordable housing. They don't have to be built by December 31st. Our plan just has to withstand challenge.
Okay. And why aren't our infrastructures, the C1 waterways, the buffers, K4 and K5 soils, why aren't those sites being used as evidence to challenge the state's number? So just to be clear about my question, Ms. LeBou said certain towns have successfully challenged.
We gotta talk again, it comes back on, sorry.
Certain towns, I believe you said certain towns were able to challenge the state via, oh, we don't have enough vacant space, correct? That's what you said, Ms. LeBou?
They adopted a number, the number that was below what the DCA had given them. And then their adoption of that number was then challenged by builders or fair share, and then they mediated with the help of the court to settle upon the number.
Okay. What separates a town who challenged the state versus Jackson? What kind of infrastructure?
They were all built out. They were all almost completely built out.
You did some vacant space, right? That's what you said. So what I'm saying is, in a similar way to vacant space, why aren't our C1 waterways, the wetlands, being factored into that
because
category?
there are specific rules for vacant land analysis that you have to apply, and that's not included in that.
So one thing, if I may, 1,000 unit is our obligation. That has been signed into settlement. We cannot go back to the court, as Ms. LeBou pointed, to challenge that number.
Even if it's on an island?
We agreed to it.
Well, we agreed to that number. Township of Jackson
And
agreed to
even
it.
if it's not physically possible, it's a hazardous.
No, let's go back. So our number is 1,000 units. After that, Township of Jackson is responsible to provide wherever, like the court is not telling you that to it wherever, within the municipal boundary, to provide a feasible plan that shows that 1,000 units can be built. So as we said at the beginning of the process, the master plan subcommittee invited landowners, developers throughout Township of Jackson that are interested in providing and working, creating a concept plan to show that they can help Township of Jackson meet that number.
What if the
These
plan
are the
poses a
17
threat?
sites.
What if the plan poses a threat to residents?
Yes. Threat as in
A safety hazard. What if the plan poses a safety hazard to residents in the form of a flood?
So as part of the process, as these ordinances get approved and go into play, after a certain time, one by one, these applications are going to come before the planning board.
What you're saying
It's going to
is,
go through the same process of vetting as every site plan application goes through in Township of Jackson. Your planning board is going to review all the state regulations such as wetlands, such as flood hazard areas that impact the site. There are going to be engineers that provide details on the properties and how it's going to get developed. And it's going to be reviewed in accordance with the ordinance and the state regulations.
are you using the Fair Housing Act as a blanket cover? Developing on parcels you probably shouldn't.
Okay, then, and we'll come back with some other people. Council,
Hey, Ben and Jackson.
Why have
We use the Robbinsville idea of building commercial and retail in the same building, so we condense the amount of usage of aerated both, instead of building a residential component here and another commercial component here. Why aren't they being done in the same building with residential going 3 floors or 4 floors above?
The ordinance does allow that. We have, when the building is going to be facing the county frontage, it is allowed to go with a ground-story commercial and I believe another 3-story of residential.
Well, why haven't we done any of that here in this town?
So this is new plan. What existed in the old plan, I think we're not.
We had plenty of room over on Cedar Swamp Road where that construction's never started yet. And we've had plenty of road up and down West Commodore Boulevard.
I don't know how. So I don't know how those ordinances were written and what those conditions those are the third round ordinances. So I can't address it.
Why didn't the environmental commission get consulted with?
Adam, please wait.
Ignorance isn't an excuse. You're supposed to know this stuff. I'm sorry, but.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Why didn't the environmental commission,
That's
or did the environmental commission get consulted, given this affected land use in town?
We had an entire 18-month planning process and several public meetings. We had a public hearing for the master plan. This is all.
Did you consult with the, no, did anybody? I'm not just talking to you, Ms. Luther, respectfully, I'm speaking on behalf of.
So,
Did one of the towns
So
consult?
Adam, it's not a secret that the environmental commission was basically reconstructed in the past 6 to 7 weeks. Let's just call it a spade. And this process has been ongoing for a lot longer than that. And I think we are very happy to work with the environmental commission. I know myself and the mayor had a conversation with the chairman of the environmental commission, making sure that he's given the support to. We actually authorized this afternoon. I don't know if you updated everyone. We authorized. We're going to go out for bid to get a. Holly, you probably know the terminology better than I do. An environmental resource inventory thing. Obviously, I'm hoping. I think Councilman Pollock will support that. That's something that the mayor authorized 3 hours ago. I saw it online. I'll go backwards. Mr. Tremor called me about something else. He sent me an email, and I called Malika right away. I said, "Did we do this?" She said, "No." And I called the mayor, said, "Could we get this done?" And she said, "Absolutely." So I think the answer is, and I'm not looking to throw shade at anyone, that there was no environmental commission until recently, let's be honest, or it was a limited environmental commission. Now that there is a reconstructed environmental commission, the chairman has been given permission and the authority to seek legal guidance when legal guidance is necessary. He's also been given the authority to request, which he did today, a proper environmental analysis of Jackson Township, which is something which is not going to be cheap, but it's something that I think will have a 5-0 council to support. And I think going forward, we're going to have a lot of engagement. Unfortunately, like we said before you got here, is we have to work within the timeframes, and if there are environmental issues, some of these projects may have to come back, and we may have to go back to the drawing board with.
Every project has to go before the planning board.
Yeah.
Every single one you have the opportunity to comment on.
And now that the commission is reinstated, do you plan on looping them into every meeting here on out?
So I can definitely say that the planning board and zoning board, we had 2 meetings so far. I've had with the chairman of the environmental commission. I know Councilman Pollock showed up to one of the environmental commission meetings. I know the mayor has been engaging with Mr. Tremor tremendously, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think Ms. Reynolds and Adam, the mayor, actually raise you from the alternate position to a regular position.
She did, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and no, my point is, I want to say is that I think that's a sign that we definitely, I think the council and the mayor want to include engagement. And there was a meeting with 2 attorneys with Mr. Tremor, and we want to ensure that there is proper engagement. So yes, from our standpoint as a council, we want every application went through the appropriate channels by the planning board to go through the environmental commission. And Ms. LeBeau, if you could just, you have a little bit more experience than me on that. That's what our ordinance requires, and that's what they will be doing. Mr. Rivera.
Yes. What is the schedule for the second reading?
So sure. So far, the council agenda has not been finalized. It's usually finalized, usually internally, council gets it on Wednesday or Thursday morning, and then it's published Friday. As of now, that has not been happened yet, so I'm speculating, but as of now, it looks like the council meeting next Tuesday.
I'm sorry, what
The
was
council meeting on next Tuesday, which is, I think the date is the 16th, December 16th.
All right, so you're going to be voting on this on the 16th?
On the ordinances, correct.
Huh?
On the ordinances.
On the ordinance, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, how many people does it take to pass it? How many council people?
5%.
It's a 5%.
3 votes. 3 votes.
What's that?
3 votes.
3 votes, okay. Now, who are the entities that are challenging to your plan?
Ms. LeBeau, could I respond for a second? So there are 3 entities, currently, 3.5 entities, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Fair Share Housing had technical questions, but they are supporting our plan in court, so far, correct?
Correct.
There is the Grocer, which is a parcel located on County Line Road near ShopRite, which is challenging our plan. There is a parcel, a very large parcel on Whitesville Road, which is challenging our plan, which the town already rezoned in August for single-family homes. And it's already included in the plan. He's asking for higher density. And then there is a parcel, which I would say is also challenging the plan on County Line Road, by the border of Hope and County Line, which is a very large parcel. It's the golf course over there, which is a large portion in Lakewood, and they're challenging it on the Jackson part.
Well, I have to compliment you on your recollection. That was pretty good. I couldn't do that. So I want to have questions with the planner. Okay. Now I've read quite a few applications that you helped towns to submit for the affordable housing, and one of them was Millstone Township, and Millstone Township ended up with 100 units. Is that correct?
Millstone?
Millstone Township.
I haven't worked, I think my firm has, I agree with this.
Okay, so that's it. Well, they ended up with 100. And I read the application, and they basically said that a lot of our property is environmentally constrained. And I didn't see that in the application for Jackson. You take the environmentally constrained property and you subtract the already developed property, and that gives you developable property. And how much developable property is in Jackson?
So, unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with the Millstone plan. I didn't work on that. But if I'm understanding your question, in terms of, as we brought to the forefront, to discuss that as to how much of area is environmentally constrained and how much of developable vacant land do we have left, is the point of time in which we would be arguing our
Well, I have to
obligation
manage
number.
the time. Can you make it as short as?
Our obligation number. And I don't think that was even a discussion on the table for Township of Jackson, because our credit was already 1,000 units. We couldn't come up and discuss that any further with the court and the affordable housing program.
So you're, now, these properties that were selected, were you involved in vetting them and selecting them?
Well, I was working with the master plan subcommittee when these sites were, and reviewed the concept plans.
Okay. Can we get a copy of that vetting document can we get a copy of the Jackson application put online? Where's Mr.?
The checklist.
Can we do that, Councilman Pollock? Can we get them posted online?
What, what do you want?
I think you referred to the submission, the actual application.
Application as in the housing element fashion plan.
Like our file.
The application that you presented to the state that has all the facts and figures,
Sure.
and that they would use to make a determination on how many units we will be required to
I
build.
think that's already,
Excuse me?
it's just, it's the housing element, fair share plan of the master plan, it's a component of the master plan.
I'm talking about the application that you
That's what
made.
was filed with the state.
You filed that with the state?
I filed that.
All right. And what did, and their response was just to accept it, or was there any back and forth?
Well, that's what we're in litigation about right now. We filed the housing element and fair share plan with the courts, with the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program, and we received 4 challenges. So,
Okay,
in the absence of a challenge, which hasn't happened, they're just supposed to apply an objective criteria to say whether or not this plan.
Well, I have to cut you short, because this time is short. I do interviews for a living, so I have to, I don't mean to be,
It's gonna be a really good answer.
Yeah, I don't, well, okay, so let's get back to, the different ways that towns, satisfy the, affordable housing units. I mean, Millstone, only got 100, and they're doing it all organically. They want a piece of property on the edge of town, and they're gonna build 100 units, okay? They don't have to build 1,000 units to get to 100 units, right? Now, what are some of the different ways that towns can meet their obligation?
So the Fair Housing Act provides different methods in which a town can meet. One, I think, again, I'm not familiar with the Millstone plan, but from what you're saying, 100 units they're building sounds like 100% affordable housing development. That is one way of meeting your number. You build 100 units, you get 100 credits. A couple of other ways is you have special needs housing, which is commonly known as group home housing. There is one ways of providing that. Non-profits comes and builds that, and you can provide, you can get credit for that. The other is the inclusionary development, which is what is mostly in township of Jackson, the 17 sites we are proposing. So there are various mechanisms. One thing I do want to add to each mechanism, like I said at the beginning, comes with its sets of rules. Either you have to provide monetary assistance to get that project going, or you have to provide land. In terms of other items, such as group homes, you have to provide some kind
All right,
of.
well, I don't want to detail, I'm talking higher level. So
Okay.
there's other ways to do this, right?
Yes.
And you can do a combination, right?
Yes.
Now, if you let the developers build all your affordable homes, and what's the average market, what's the real ratio of market homes to affordable homes?
In the fair.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I mean,
The real
how much
ratio,
set
like,
aside?
in general?
In general, 80-20, I'm asking her questions, sorry.
In terms of set aside, it can range between 10 to 20%.
Because we just, the zoning board just approved 450 homes in 537, and 400 homes are market, and 450 are affordable. So that's kind of a high rate.
I mean, for 450.
No, it's a low rate. It's a low rate. So which way is the best for not putting a lot of pressure on infrastructure? It seems to me that building 1,000 homes would be like a lot less pressure on infrastructure than building 8,000 homes. So.
Well, I mean, it depends. How are you going to build 1,000 homes? If you're going to, I mean, are you in the business of building in the township? I mean, there has to be monetary incentive, you know.
I mean, 8,000 homes compared to 1,000 homes, don't you think that's a lot less pressure on infrastructure?
Statistically, yes.
I'd like to, can I comment on that?
Yeah,
too,
sure,
to be
go
honest?
ahead.
Right,
Marty,
sure.
I do have a question for you. Now, you talked about this Pinelands application, and this applicant went into the Pinelands?
So, one second, I just want to stop for a second. The forum, we're all, I know you might, like, we're all the same.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
The question you asking, and you seem to be like asking specific questions to specific, we're all the
All
same
right,
team.
go ahead.
We're all on
I'm
the same
sorry,
team.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I just want to get my questions.
sure.
We spent a lot of time listening to presentations, and some other people got a lot of time, so
Go for
I'm
it.
trying to just squeeze it in.
Sure, go for it.
So what was your answer?
What was your question?
All right, let's go to there's an applicant who applied to the Pinelands for high density. And it wasn't even zoned for high density. And you're saying that this ordinance will help that applicant get his Pinelands approval?
No, I don't think that's what we said before. I don't think that's what we said before.
Well, okay, you were,
To get Pinelands approval, but the ordinance won't help it get Pinelands.
right. But why would somebody apply to Pinelands for high density housing? It's not even zoned that way in Jackson.
People have the right to apply for,
Right, I mean,
people have the right to apply for whatever they want, doesn't mean they'll get it.
They have land, they want to build houses.
Well, they must have been very confident that Jackson would zone it high density. That's my.
Are you talking about a current application in front of the Pinelands?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, now, I went through, now, this, I was asking for who did the vetting of these properties? Who did them? Is there an analysis that you can post online?
So we mentioned before that there was a developers meeting that was hosted by the Master Plan Subcommittee. That Malcolm, I think you were there. Dr. Campbell was there. Lisa DeMarzo was there, together with the planning board attorney, where the developers brought.
All right, so there's no I'm asking for an analysis. Somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I want my property high density."
Sure, they had all
They're
the
sitting in a
plans.
turtle farm. Somebody's got to analyze that and say, "No, that's not a good idea. That's a turtle farm."
So part of, and Malcolm, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the process is that the township and the developers have to give an analysis which goes to fair share housing and to the state.
Who on our side did the analysis? Saying, "Oh, this is these guys signed up to be in the HD, and this is a turtle farm, and this other one is wetlands, and we don't recommend you put them in there."
So
I mean, I'm asking, was there that kind of analysis, and was it in writing?
So there were concept plans that were asked, in which any kind of wetlands was drawn out and seen, and any kind of constraints was reviewed. That the master plan subcommittee did look at the concept and.
Well, can you shorten that, please? I mean, is there an analysis, and is there in writing?
So
did you have one of our engineers that looks at it?
Sure.
I'm just trying to get an answer.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
I'm just trying to get an answer, that's all.
Then you cut everyone off.
I'm sorry, is there a document that you can show us?
In the housing element and fair share plan, all of those concept plans are laid out, and then their approvability, their suitability, it's all in the plan.
Okay, now is that concept fair share plan online? that
Sure, it's on the
everybody
town
can look at?
website, but on the planning board, yeah, it's been there for long.
People jump in.
Yeah, I'll just stop for a second.
I want to throw a couple rapid fire questions. I don't want to go back and forth on answers.
Sure.
Sorry. Who negotiated the number of affordable housing units? Who did the negotiations? We didn't
Malcolm,
negotiate.
I don't think 1,000 units.
Who negotiated?
Was our
We
affordable
just
attorney
said yes.
together with the mayor?
Tried to vote.
Mayor ran it together with whoever our attorney was at that point. Yeah.
What law firm wrote these ordinances?
These ordinances were written by our affordable team, so Robbie, your team was involved with it together with our engineer. It's our planner, not a secret. Together with council.
I think we went to sites.
One second, I want to add one more thing, because you asked a very quick question. Obviously, our municipal attorney reviewed them and gave his feedback also, but was That was the process that I went through. And if you look on
What
the,
law firm?
our municipal attorney, Greg McDuck, and obviously reviewed at the end before I went on the dais, but just want to add on, what? So if you look in the affordable housing plan that was published on the website 6 months ago, in July, the drafts were there already, so that was done by our affordable team. The drafts were already online 8 months ago.
Rothstein,
Yes.
That's all I was asking.
Right, but it wasn't just written by attorneys, that was what I wanted to add, the plan wrote, was
with planner input,
correct, a lot of input.
yes.
I just.
One second, Councilman Pollock is still asking questions.
Now, the cost of doing.
Councilman Pollock.
Tell me what.
Do we have a list of the developers attached to each one of these projects? That would be great for everybody.
I need that.
We don't,
I'll be
There's no
auditing
list
you
of
guys.
developers in the plan
No,
now.
we
It's a
don't.
public
Okay.
announcement. I will be auditing this town.
Are we changing the maximum height for buildings in that?
So,
Because it seems like some of these projects are gonna be above, what did we raise it not that long ago to 35 feet, I think? And now some of these buildings, I think, will be, what, 50 feet?
So some of these proposed ordinances do have for the commercial component, for the first story to be, some of them are permitting up to 4-story, 50.
Are these developments gonna be paying tree removal fees?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, good. Did we estimate the impact on the township when it comes to infrastructure and the cost of taxpayers?
So impact on township, I believe every concept was asked to provide whether there would be enough, how would they meet their sewer and water demands. Every concept was asked to provide that, whether they'll be able to provide that. And what was the second part?
Cost of tax.
cost of taxpayers.
Yeah, that was not a factor.
Were the people in these zones notified of any of these developments yet?
No, there's notice that's required when a zone is changed, but when an ordinance is passed that's part of a master plan, individual notice is not required.
One second, if I could just add, and anyone who's part of this plan had to come and, I don't think sign, but any lots that are part of the, that are part and parcel of the plan that are gonna be used for affordable housing has to agree to be part of the plan. So if we're gonna count those lots, Mr. Pollock, in the plan, they have to be, those owners have to be okay with it.
Now, were there any previous applications on any of these lots beforehand?
I'm aware of one, yes, there's one that had approvals for schools on Chapman Road. I saw Jim over there.
What about denials?
I'm sorry?
Were there any prior denials on any of these parcels?
Oh,
Zoning board or planning board?
I'm not sure, I just know Chapman Road, that one I know. Because Jim and I went to many meetings in that.
They can't bring that forward if you got previously denied.
Correct,
Right, it's the exact same.
it's the same plan, correct.
I'm just hoping there would also be full disclosure of potential conflict of interest of all officials and professionals involved in this process. I think we need to know who these developers are. We need to know the connections. I'm just gonna keep asking these questions. And I'm just saying here, I cannot vote yes on this unless I have all the information, all the connections, and I think some of us sitting up there may not be able to vote on it because of our connections. I am.
This has been seen in Hudson
I
County.
don't know how to say it, and we're jamming this in at the last minute, I feel like, I'm not happy with this, I know we're trying, I know we're doing some good stuff in there,
Land grabbing, that's what
These
you're
are my
doing.
questions, feel free to ask.
I understand your concerns about the
Land
time, but
grabbing.
there's one thing that I went through before, is that we are under extremely tight time constraints with regards to this process.
Well, we the people.
But if the
say no, so
taxpayers
regardless of
don't
your
want
deadline,
this,
there's
we
no.
pay the taxes.
It is
Why
our
does this have to be
constitutional
done?
obligation.
1,000.
You
You
are
think that
for-
white
Ma'am,
through
ma'am,
road?
ma'am, ma'am,
I think
ma'am,
you
ma'am,
can
ma'am,
calculate
Let's
the
not
road.
decide. I'm asking a question,
One second, one second, I'm
the state
asking.
is forcing it on us.
I
This is
know.
where I'm gonna defend them.
Can we go to Treasury?
I would love to.
I've already tried
Already,
This has been going on since 1975.
I have a 400. I can pack half you people in my 400. Let's go to Trenton.
Okay, just two more now.
We'll get back to you.
Can I speak? I haven't even spoken.
There are residents who get a chance, we'll come back, we'll come back to you. Break the code and then, yeah.
I want to thank you guys for putting this on, so we can actually have this debate.
Ma'am, please
This is the
embrace
first
it.
time hearing what you keep talking.
I'm talking to her, I'm not talking to you.
I haven't really had time to. Okay.
The question I have, Morty, I have a couple of them. I think just gave me that information. We have an affordable attorney, and have we ever filed with the DCA to try to get some of that trust fund money?
So I'll just respond, I forwarded to you when Ray sent me, I forwarded you an email he sent with regard to a trust fund from the state, a $30 million
Affordable
trust fund.
Housing Trust Fund. They've been issuing $3 million to local townships over the last several years. And we could build up to 25 units with that money. You know, we've never.
I forwarded you today, yeah.
All right, that was
We got
one
that
question.
response, yeah.
Do we have an affordable housing trust?
Sure.
How much money do we have?
Robin?
I don't know exactly how much money you have in there.
I think it was 8 million.
No, it's not that, but I don't think it was that much. There's like 3 accounts, no?
There are 3 accounts, some of them are earmarked for different things, some of them for rehabilitation. I have to look specifically.
But Ray, I'll get that to you
And
tomorrow.
the spending plan, is part of the housing allocation plan, so those numbers are.
Now, Morty, as a township, we can issue debt. We can issue tax-free bonds at a big advantage at a low interest rate. You're saying, do we own any township property other than open space where we could take a big bite out of our obligation? Even open space. If we utilize open space and we put it up for a vote versus having to build 5,000 to 8,000 additional homes to be able to build only 1,000, how many in this room would actually allow us to use open space? You'd rather have 8,000 homes and about $250 million in structural costs?
Ray, go on. Ray, go on.
Do we have any other space other than open space that we could take a bite out of our obligation and build on ourselves? Hire a builder and build it ourselves? Do we have it, is what I'm asking.
So I would have to speak to Mr. Collins tomorrow to better understand the Rossi. I think there's 2 types of open space. There's Green Acres Fund, things that we're not allowed to touch, obviously,
Right.
Which is encumbered.
Well, we never even looked to see what we have. I mean, if we have space, we float a tax-free bond at a 4.5% interest rate. We can actually become and collect the rent ourselves. It would cost the taxpayers nothing. We would throw off positive cash flow.
So,
They'll pay our bills that way.
so obviously, in these further
Yeah, I mean, it's something
I
that
think
definitely-
generally when we give government more jobs to do, somebody in government doesn't always work out exactly as we'd like, but
I mean, it's
government
interesting.
and development has never been a great partnership, but
We collect property taxes, we can collect rent, we would own the property outright. And how many we can build, and we could build a few hundred a year by actually meeting our obligation and wiping out the 5,000, and that's a wishful thinking, 5,000. It's probably gonna be closer to 8 on a 20% ratio. You're talking about if we had to build one school, we gotta go borrow $100 million, $200 million. To actually, we're talking about 25, 30,000 additional people, and the additional building currently going on over the 10-year span. So we're talking about possibly about 40, 50, 60, 70% increase in population. And we're talking infrastructure costs in the hundreds of millions of dollars to compensate for that. Certainly seems to be a lot cheaper if we were to isolate some of our township properties, be able to float a bond, we've got an excellent credit rating, and take a big bite out of our obligation by building a chunk of those homes ourselves. We'd actually make money. Very limited cost to the taxpayer that way.
I want to say.
One second, Paul.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I apologize.
1 second. I said before, after.
If you don't want to interrupt, don't interrupt. You talk.
Guys, I said before, please.
I sat here for an hour and a half waiting for my.
Right. I said after Ray, when you're done, we're gonna give it to Ed Bannon. I wanna make sure everyone has a chance before we go for double, so.
That's great. If we can look into it, it would be great if we can actually.
So I have some thoughts, but obviously I wanna talk to the professionals and,
Yeah, you're talking about a significant difference, you know, you're talking a couple $100 million of infrastructure cost increases for all of that affordable housing. I mean, that's a tremendous, you're talking about raising your taxes substantially. So it's a lot easier to see if we have any vacant properties that we can actually become a builder ourselves, hire a builder, own the property, and collect the rent from the property. It's worth it.
now the remedy of answer.
They're just, when the town builds the affordable units, generally you give the property to a developer. You have to.
Yeah, but we hire a developer, we own the property to develop. We make all the money.
That's correct.
High-density housing is the most profitable.
It's
These
affordable
large
housing.
projects, they're gonna make $100 million minimum
They're
profit.
restricted rents, and there's a reason why the developers who build 100% affordable housing need tax credits, because they don't make money.
Yeah, but they borrow at 8 or 9%. We would be actually borrowing at 4.5%. Big difference.
Okay, well.
Thank you.
Ed? Paul, we have to give everyone a chance before we go back for seconds.
Totally okay, so the applicants come back to us with the LOI, wetlands, D3 approvals before they come here.
So my understanding, and I'm still learning a little bit more about the Environmental Commission and what their abilities are. So I don't want to completely speak out of place here. But my understanding of the authority that is given over to the Environmental Commission is a commission, is the ability to review, I don't know if you could require the LOI before. I know that's something that Mr. Tremor and the members have been discussing in depth, but
It would have to be as part of an application. There would have to be some type of application planning first. You can't just require them to come in with the documentation. That's all.
Their documentation isn't good enough with these agencies before they come to the planning board?
I'm not sure what.
Did they get those, they get all that data filled out ahead of time before they come here? So that we don't have to chase them for all the information.
excuse me, wait 1 second. Just want to make sure we don't. I'm not sure.
Part of an application, I guess part of a site plan application?
Yes, they will be required to provide all that information to the planning.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Hello? I can actually probably talk about it.
Try this one.
Hello? I have a couple questions. I did extensive reading on this, and what I haven't heard from anyone, because the town supposedly, according to the reading I did, they're supposed to keep track of the affordable units that we have now. So can anybody give me the number?
Where it sits right now.
Yeah, like how many we've accumulated, because we can count that against that. I've read that in several articles, and I haven't heard anybody give me that number.
So, as part of our third round plan, we are, calculating how many are built and how many are not built, and what can be applied to the third round. As part of this, we have to prove that, all our third round number is met. So all that we had promised in the third round is either built or close to getting built or has been approved. And that's the documentations I'm trying to, find information on. I didn't do that.
So we're in that process
Yeah.
now, as part of the review of the court and fair share. If there's anything left over from the third round and it's still active, then we can apply it to the fourth round.
Okay. So you don't actually have that number yet? Okay, because in case you didn't know, in 2024, the median income in Jackson was $97,000, which is not high. So theoretically, then if it's a median, that means 50% is below and 50% is above.
We can only count deed-restricted affordable housing, not just naturally occurring affordable housing, which is something that towns have complained of. There was a program years ago we could, but we can only count units that are deed-restricted in the program.
Okay, well, you can also ask apartment buildings if they would like to become affordable housing. So we have a lot of apartment buildings, so we can ask them, instead of building
We
new.
would also have to income qualify all of the tenants and get a deed restriction.
Okay, but that's something to consider, and this is another consideration. I'm just throwing ideas out there, because I'd like to recycle what we have rather than build new. We also have a high school, Blue Ribbon High School is sitting up for sale. Okay, if we're gonna start moving more people into the district here, we are probably gonna need a larger high school. Why not move them from the other high school to this one, since it's more centrally located? And you've got that space that I believe Jackson owns the land that our schools are under, right? Am I wrong? I'm not a rocket scientist about this.
So I think it's a middle school which is for sale, and I think the answer, I think Jim brought up before, is, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question, is you're recommending that we ask the district not to sell the schools?
Okay, we have the Christie McCullough up for sale. It was for 54, now it's down to 44.
Sure.
And we consolidated everything in the other high school, which is on the far end of Jackson. Krista, I believe, is more centrally located in Jackson. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, tell me. I'm okay with being wrong.
It's right next to Liberty, it's about half a mile away. Memorial.
All right, well, I don't know what the capacity on the different schools is, but why not keep the Blue Ribbon School that has a lot more?
So the answer to that question is that there were extensive conversations and some pretty loud and engaging Board of Ed meetings, and the Board of Ed is a separate entity, and there were conversations, but that was a decision that a separate entity, the Board of Ed, made, and not much more as in this form of government, and this entity can do. We can reach out to them. I'm going to actually be meeting with them next week, and I can recommend that. Pull it off the market, but I think the state monitor told them they have to sell it, if I remember correctly.
All right, well, the reason I came up to this is this gentleman here about doing our own building. Did anybody read Dorothy's state budget for 2026 besides me? Is anybody else besides me aware that he only has $5 million for affordable housing? All the money that he had, or he had in previous years, he's allocated for other projects. My concern is just like with our busing, okay? We went in the hole because of busing, because the state makes the determination on public school students, okay? And that was the problem with Wall, Howell, Tom's River, Lakewood, and us, okay? There is a higher demographic of non-public school students, and they don't take that into consideration when they divvy the money out, okay? Now, they only have $5 million in the bucket for affordable housing. So we had to sell schools to make up for the busing deficit. Are we gonna have to sell something else to make up for these apartment buildings and houses that aren't gonna be getting the money from the state?
We're not building them, we're zoning for the affordable housing. So the cost that is being borne by the township is cost of planning and adoption of affordable.
Okay, but what are the landlords gonna say when they're not getting their vouchers or whatever from the state? Because there's no money in the bucket. You might not care, but we might have to.
You don't care, you people don't care about us. And a building, then next to the pavement, guys, next to the pavement.
Mr. Pollock, 1 second, Mr. Pollock, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is,
Next to the pavements.
no, this building being done, and it's kind of goes against what Ray was saying in a way, where this is a private developer doing this. So whatever costing issues is on them, it doesn't fall on the taxpayer.
Yeah, but when the landlord goes to the guy, when he goes to get his vouchers from the state, and the state says, screw you.
That has nothing to do with us.
There are no vouchers for this program.
They can suffer. I don't care if these developers suffer. It's
Well,
nothing to
guess
do with the
what?
town.
Well, guess what? Somehow I can't help but think it's gonna end up being our cost.
This is not,
That's legally
it's
can't.
not estimate housing, that's not what this is. Yeah, it's affordable housing, it's completely different.
Land grabbing, that's what it
It's a
is.
voucher program where if the person gets money from the state, they pay, and they,
Land grabbing.
landlords get back a portion of money from the property owner. That's not this. These people are income qualified and their rent is restricted by their income. They pay the landlord directly.
Forcing it to you.
Yeah, they do, but
I saw an
they may have, someone makes up the difference.
No, it's the developer. If the plan goes the way it's currently constructed, it's the developer who makes up the difference, as I think Mr. Pollock and Bob said. I just want to stop for 1 second, just one interruption for a second. So obviously, it's engaging. I think we're having a lot of conversation. It obviously is later than 8:30. I mentioned before we want to give everyone the opportunity. I have to run in 10 minutes to PTA. I'm an hour late, so I'm gonna have to run. I apologize. I think Mr. Gruss is still waiting in the hall, so we can come back in. But I think the professionals, could we give it another 25 minutes? Does that work for you? 20 minutes? Okay. Guys, there's a lot of great questions. I just want to stop for a second. If we can give another 10 minutes until 9 o'clock, and as I said before, we can have disagreements, but I think all the members of the council do want to hear people's voices. I know Mr. Pollock responds to anyone who reaches out to him. I reach out, and feel free to reach out to either him, myself, or Mr. Brusty, and we will reach out. Who has not asked a question? I know people have seconds, but it's like, ma'am, if you don't mind.
I was wondering, is like a veterans facility, like they're building in Beechwood Bagel area, would that be part of affordable housing?
There is the opportunity for a veteran's preference.
I'm just saying, because maybe that wouldn't be an increase on our schools, maybe we consider something like that, which I think it's not gonna hurt the town. It's certainly not gonna hurt the school. Where or can we do something like he was saying before and provide some units for the veterans?
I represent Berkeley Township. And I just say that we were not approached by Thomas Towers or any other entity like that for a project of that nature, but I'm sure the township would definitely be open to it.
If I could ask one question, Ms. Lobu, I don't know if is the set aside for veterans development lower, like a 10%, or that's a myth? It's the same 10. It's the same 20%.
Well, I mean, it could be, yes.
And then one other question. All these parcels that we're getting and looking at, are they going to all be city water or are they be well?
So part of the plan require that they have a water plan.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you were around 46 years ago, but when we had that Legler situation, I was personally involved in that, and it was a hardship on everyone in that area. It changed everyone's lives, sickness, a lot of different things, expenses, and we don't want to see that again. So if you are going to have city water, where is it going to come from? We only have two areas, one on one side of the town on one city water, and another one on the other side of town. And I doubt that the one on the south side of town by 571 can handle any more homes.
Sure. So there are some of the and I think part of the challenges that currently exist is the developers do have the responsibility to show how they're going to be upgrading the water system. And there are, like you said, there are parts of town that right now are maxed out with capacity. It's not a secret. So that is part of what some of the conversations that the developers do need to prove to the state and those entities. Next, I think the young man.
Right on.
Oh, she doesn't have to be heard. She doesn't want. But yeah, I want to make sure we hear you up here. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Deborah Piana. I live on 84 White Road. There's a lot next to me. I've been living here since 36 years. And that lot was opposed before for building on because I have a hill. I live on 3 acres. And it was turned down because they wanted to build an all-girls school on the hill. And that water went down into my aquifer and contaminated my water because I have animals. Okay, before. So I have to worry about that. So this should not be allowed as opposed before and denied. It should be done again.
We should talk.
Sorry?
We should talk. That's a good
point.
So I just want to clarify, you're mentioning that the property behind you had a school application that was denied? So I think as Adam said before, that denial is there forever. If that application would come back, it can't come back legally without, right, Robin? Correct.
Well, I have the block. It's 21401 lot 15. That cuts right on the property.
You gotta get your number out of it.
So if you don't mind, if you could possibly reach out, I'm gonna give you my email address. If you could reach out tomorrow, we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Who else didn't have a question yet? Adam, I know you have a lot. One second.
Did the township have any intentions, or actually, legally, is the township allowed to modify or withdraw our current application, given the epiphany of the myriad of ideas? Or are we forced to, are we legally allowed to modify or withdraw our current application?
We're legally allowed to, but we will lose our immunity and protection against builders remedy lawsuits.
And how does that consequence?
That means that those developers and anyone else who has an interest or contracts in land can submit an application to build whatever they want, and the court will approve it.
It'll be worse.
It will be worse.
And I can tell you there are many developers who have reached out to the planning board and to our professionals since this plan has been instituted, saying, hey, we snooze, we lose. It's not fair. And I'm telling you now that those developers are all hoping that the council doesn't move forward, because then they can possibly move forward with the builder's remedy.
So was this a therapy session?
There was just an informational session, but also things can change. A developer can drop out. We have reviews. If there's a midpoint review, there's reviews. So things can change.
Fair question. I think that's a fair question. Great question.
Morty, are we going to lose our zoning?
I want to address Adam for 1 second, and then I'll get to you. And I guess I'm not making a big deal. Oh well, my kids better be doing well this year. It's fine. The answer to that question is why we're here and why we're having this roundtable is, and I called it a roundtable for 2 reasons. I felt it was important. There were a lot of questions. People have been reaching out to me, whether it's by council meeting. Council meeting is a little bit more intimidating. People sometimes feel aren't as comfortable getting up and talking. And the purpose of this meeting was to give everyone what I felt, and I think it was relaxed, a chance to better understand. That being said, as I think Mr. Rivera asked before, it requires 3 votes. I think you heard from one of the council members who has concerns, and he has a right to exercise that vote and make his own informed decision. There are 5 council members out there. I'm not saying what I'm doing at this point yet, but obviously I'm going to speak to our professionals and make a recommendation. I heard from the public. Mr. Katoner mentioned that as part of this also was to hear other ideas. We're gonna have conversations and see what's feasible and what's not feasible. Now, we as a legislative body have to make a decision. 3 votes out of 5 votes have to make a decision. It could be we'll say, Mr. Katoner saying a great idea. I'll speak to our professionals. As council president, I'll rally the troops. We'll have a conversation, and it could be not. And then those are, but I feel this was an opportunity to hear from residents and a little bit more of an opportunity. And I'm going to throw something else out there. I do think, and it's something that I think I share with my colleagues sitting on the right and my other colleagues also, is we want to engage our residents more going forward. And I think it's a mistake that has happened in the past. And I'm only here to talk about affordable housing. Maybe we'll address this by council meeting. I think we should have more of these throughout the year, more opportunities before. Unfortunately, this ordinance and this concept is, I don't want to use where our hands are tied, but our hands to a certain degree, I don't like saying that, but there's a lot of things, we're going to have other ordinances that come up throughout the year that, or maybe our hands aren't tied, and they may be controversial, that we're going to have one neighborhood coming out in support, one neighborhood coming out against. We've had conversations, myself and some of my colleagues, about some of our property maintenance ordinances. There are some people who support within the council a more robust and a more stricter property maintenance. Some people feel we're in a good place. I think we should have an open town hall to discuss that. So it doesn't mean that council members may come in, hear an idea and say, hey, that's a great compromise. So the answer to the question is, we heard ideas. I'm gonna go back and discuss it. My colleagues who are watching are gonna go back and discuss it. There are those who are gonna say decisions made. I don't think a decision has been made until the council meeting happens. And I think secondly, it was important to our residents out there, I'm sure who are watching, or if not watching now, will watch it tomorrow, who maybe understand a little bit more the decisions that have to be made behind the scenes. And I'm going to give a shout out to yourself and Holly in your official capacities for a second, is, I think one of the things that you heard tonight is there are environmental concerns that I think you potentially are alluding to. And as I mentioned today, is when those issues were brought to my attention today, in the new capacity that we have, we immediately went and we spoke to the right people, and we do want to work with you guys. And I think just for that itself, I think we're in a better place than we were yesterday. That's it. And one second, it is 9 o'clock. I'm going to, right? 9 o'clock. 9:01, I'm going to thank the two professionals for coming. I'm not being rude, but Paul, we've been here for longer than we told them. And it is late. I'll be here for a few more minutes. If you want to follow on the back, quickly catch them before they leave, but they've been here a long time. I know they probably have young children, so we appreciate you coming. They will be coming back to the council meeting next week, Tuesday. If it's on the agenda, they will be invited back to the council meeting. And obviously, it's a little bit of a more intense setting there, but we appreciate everyone coming. And everyone who didn't get a chance to speak, feel free to reach out via cell, via email, via text. And thank you, Adam.
I know Chandler's not a county road.